Hi pals, I hope you're doing all kinds of well. Today I wanted to share with you a list of books that I'd like to read before the end of 2021, before the end of this year. This is inclusive of my autumn and winter TBR. Autumn in Iceland isn't really a very long season, it might be sort of 3-4 weeks at most, and then you kind of go and tumble straight into winter, and winter's a very long season here in Iceland. It's a very dark season, we get a lot of snow, usually a lot of storms, so plenty of indoor time, plenty of time for reading, and this kind of TBR is going to keep me busy, I think. It's not a particularly long TBR, I've stuck 12 books on the list, just to kind of keep it manageable and to leave lots of room for mood reading because I am a very big mood reader. But yeah, just now the days are getting a little bit shorter. We're starting having proper kind of dark evenings, which we don't really get in the summer. We have kind of midnight sun, and I've got on my thickest sweater and I'm coping in it. I think it's a little bit too warm still for it yet, but I thought I'd get in the spirit of things. I also have my Christmas IKEA mug, which to be fair I use all year round, but I thought given I was doing a kind of end of year TBR, what perfect time to dig all my winter kind of gear. So there's lots of reasons why the books are being put on this list. Some of them are kind of wintry feeling, they have winter settings or scenes. Others are books I had on my TBR for a while, or maybe they hit kind of a particular goal that I'm trying to aim towards. And then there are other ones that are more like kind of feel-good books that I think will be just kind of nice to escape into in the long winter months. And yeah, a whole kind of mix of stuff and mix of reasons, but I'll chat to you about them. I've got 12 books on this list, so I'm just going to get into it. The first book on the list is The Confession by Jessie Burton. This has been my longest standing ARC or advanced reader copy. I got it via NetGalley, and apparently I downloaded this in August of 2019, so it's been on my TBR for 2 years, which isn't necessarily the longest time, but I think when you're given an ARC, the kind of idea is that you read it around publication day, so not 2 years later, really. But that's why I popped on this list. It has a kind of autumnal feel in my mind to it somehow. I'm not really sure why I have that association. I've heard it's got dual perspective, which is something I really like, so I'm kind of excited about that. But yeah, it's just been on my TBR for a really long time, and I'd love to be able to just kind of clear it off and leave my review and move on. The next book is called A Circle of Five, and it's by Harris Joshua. I don't know if it's technically cheating to put this on this list because I have actually already started it, and I've made some progress, but it's a very long audiobook. I'm really enjoying it, I find it very interesting and stimulating, but it's a very long audiobook, and so I'm kind of like keen to put on the list so that I will prioritise it and make a point of actually reading it in full. But it follows 5 narrators, and they have all had experience of being part of the Windrush generation, and it tells their stories, what they expected to come to the UK for and what their reality was like on coming to the UK, and it kind of goes through each stage in their journey. It's really, really interesting, and it's bringing it all to life for me in a way that I haven't had in other things I've read. So really, really keen to finish it and read it, and that's why it's on this list. I also have on this list Trap, and that's by Lilja Sigurdardottir, and it's translated, I think, by Quentin, if I remember rightly, but I'll put the details down below. But yes, it's a sort of crime thriller-esque book set in Iceland, and it's really, really interesting. Basically, I say it's interesting, I've read the first one in the series and I'm interested to continue it. It left on an interesting note, and I won't say too much about that just for fear of spoiling it, but it left on an interesting note, and I'm keen to pick it up soon while that's all still fresh in my mind. I'm sometimes quite guilty of kind of sleeping on sequels to books and like following up with series, so I thought if I put it on this list as well, it would kind of prompt me to prioritise it, so fingers crossed that's what happens. I've also put Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas on this list. I put this on my most anticipated release of 2021 video at the start of the year, I think. It came out in January and I was really excited about it. I've read both of Angie Thomas's other novels, really enjoyed them and wanted to pick this up. I read an excerpt via NetGalley, loved it, was really keen to get to it ASAP, and I just haven't. And I feel like it would be a real shame to close out the year without reading it when I was so looking forward to it. And I still am. I'm still very excited to read it. I just haven't quite got to it yet, so that's why it's on this list. It kind of prompted me to get to it sooner. An author who I've read from before, Collette, has another book out, and I believe it's in the same series. It's called A Game of Cones. It's like a cosy mystery novel, and it's set around an ice cream shop, and that's kind of the Game of Cones. The first one was called A Deadly Inside Scoop. I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was just like the perfect kind of coziness for me. It just kind of was enough of a kind of mystery, but it was kind of all like placed in this kind of cozy atmosphere. And I just think that's going to be perfect for the winter season and for reading in the long winter nights here in Iceland. I think it was going to be really nice. So I'm very excited to get to that. This one's a bit of a wild card for me because I've never read anything from this author before, but I have a feeling it could be a 5-star read based on what other people have said about the book. So it's Life After Life by Kate Atkinson, and I believe it's about somebody who kind of relives life again and again, and has the opportunity to kind of make changes. And I love things which are about kind of destiny or fate or kind of reliving things, or I'm not really a big fan of time travel, but I am a fan of kind of this idea of like reincarnation. So I'm really interested to see if I will enjoy this as much as I think I will. It's a big book. I believe it's like 600 plus pages, but I've got it on Kindle, and I have a really good feeling about it. Now, a non-fiction book, because November is non-fiction November. I've tried to kind of factor that in to this list, and I thought this was a good option to kind of have on the list because it's non-fiction, and it's also one that I've been having a hold on my library audiobook for the longest time, possibly coming up to a year now. I'm not really sure, but my library only has a 7-day loan that it allows on it, and 7 days is quite short for me to read an audiobook, so I need to know that I really have the time to dedicate to it. And whenever it's come up and said you can now take this book, I have always not had any time. Like, it's been maybe a Friday and it's going into a weekend, maybe I'm off the following week, or I just have plans, or I'm already really into another audiobook or something, and it's never worked out. But I'm definitely keen to read it before the end of this year, because it's now getting to the point where it's just silly. But that book is How to Be an Antiracist, and it's by Ibram x Kendi. And I've heard really great things by lots of people who've read this book, and I'm just really keen to see what I'll think about it. And as I say, I've had this hold on at the library for honestly too long. But yeah, I'm keen to read it, and I'm keen to kind of dedicate some brain space and time to the themes and to the kind of issues it addresses as well. The next book is one which has wintry scenes. It's Daisy on the Outer Line, and that's by Ross Sayers, who's a Scottish writer and writes very funny, mostly YA books, but I noticed recently he released a adult fiction novel, but the ones I've read from Ross Sayers have been YA. I read Sunny and Me and was really enjoyed it. It's written in Scots, and it's just like funny. It's usually quite light-hearted, or at least Sunny and Me was, so I'm expecting Daisy on the Outer Line to be similar, but yeah, it's set on the Glasgow subway, and I believe it has like a scene around Christmas or winter time, so I think that's just going to be the perfect time to read it. And I've had this, I think I actually pre-ordered the Kindle version of this book, and I've had it kind of on my TBR for almost a year now, so it's about time that I actually read it. Now, if you didn't know, September is actually my birthday month, and my partner has bought me a book which I am very excited about. It's called Small Bodies of Water. It's by Mingya Powles. If you kind of watch my channel regularly, you might know that I really enjoyed Mingya Powles' book Tiny Moons, and I'm really keen to read more from this writer. And I saw this was coming out. It's another essay collection, and I believe it's about the author's kind of exploration of belonging and place and kind of home, but tying it to like water, which I think is going to be really interesting. But yeah, my partner has bought me it for my birthday, and I'm really keen to read it ASAP, so that's my plan. The next book on this list, I'm not sure entirely what to think of it, but I have heard some good things and some really interesting things. I've never really heard any negative things though, but that book is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and I've heard really interesting things about the kind of themes this covers. I read the first chapter as part of like a try a chapter tag, and I found it really funny. Like, the first chapter was like really like just kind of outrageous. Like, there was a quote in it that I read out loud on the thing, which was "death by dildo." Like, I just thought that was just hilarious line. But yeah, I've heard it actually has like deeper themes as well, and I think at its heart there's like a love story as well, which just really appeals to me. So I'm really curious to read it, and I think that this could be perfect time, like why not? The next book is actually one that my partner discovered, and it's a lighter read, so I'm kind of keen to have some lighter reads on this because I can get kind of burned out by lots of kind of heavier reads, and I was just keen to make sure that I was actually prioritising lighter reads in my reading plans. And so this is one that my partner stumbled across when he was shopping for my birthday presents. He wanted to get me something that I hadn't heard of before, and so he was doing like some research himself and stuff. And I said to him, if you find a book that the library has, don't buy it, because I can get it by the library and it's just a waste of money when the library already has it, basically. And so he pointed it out as a book that I might enjoy but that my library has. And so I'm planning to read it via the library, but I'm very interested in it. It's set in Iceland. It's called The Northern Lights Lodge, and it's by Julie Caplin. It's like a cosy romance novel, and I don't think it has Icelanders in it. I think it's more like travellers who have travelled to Iceland. I could be wrong about that, but it just seemed lovely and cosy, and obviously being set in Iceland where I'm based, I think that'll be really nice to read it. Now the final book on this list is a little bit of a maybe, because it depends on whether or not my library actually buys the book in. Sometimes basically what my library does is when it buys a new book, occasionally when it's kind of purchased it, I think this is what happens. And when it purchases it, it creates a listing in the system to say that the book is coming in. It tells you what library it's going to, but you cannot like reserve it or add it to a list or anything until it's actually physically in the library. And I have previously had it that a book that I think the library is going to get in just never arrives. And so that's always quite a disappointing experience. So that's why it's kind of like a maybe on the list. So until it's actually in the library, I cannot dedicate myself to read it before the end of the year. But I'm curious to read it because I've heard a lot of rave reviews of it. It's called The Appeal by Janice Hallett, and it's a crime novel, but I believe it like uses mixed media to kind of unveil the plot, I guess. And I love that in books, mixed media, and I'm very curious to see how this author will do it and how they kind of will create the scene. It was actually Lauren from Lauren the Books who put this on my radar properly, because she was raving about it in her stories, and so I'm keen to kind of see what I think about it as well. And yeah, just very curious about this mixed media aspect of it. I love like experimental crime novels and like crime writers who do unusual things and stuff, so yeah, definitely one that appeals to me, and hopefully it will come in the library. But that's all the books on this TBR. I have a space in my journal which I dedicate. I had created 2 stacks, like drawn in 2 stacks at the start of the year, and the first 10 I filled in at the start of the year, and I was due to fill in the second 10 in June, but I just never quite got around to it. So I'm excited to be able to do that now with these 11+1 books, and curious to kind of see how I get on with the TBR, the end of year TBR. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, and which ones you think I should kind of bump up my TBR. But yeah, I'm off now to get cozied up with my books and have a nice, cozy, relaxing evening on this very, very bleak Icelandic night. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you again in my next one.